Humidus Podcast.
Welcome, you beautiful bastards, to the Humidus Podcast with your boy Hammer, and of course, the biggest and the strongest of all the boys. It is
Steph here. 進行洗うこと忘れるなよ. Which means, please remember to actually wash away bird poop from your car. Roughly translated.
yeah. I recognize some words in there, and that was not roughly translated.
Hey. Are you claiming doubt over my...
No, not at all. And for the second time in the history of the Humidus Podcast, it is he who was created from the sacrifice of 1,000 shamans.
The man.
Dank.
Hello.
Yeah,
It's me, the
Dank.
man.
It's you,
him.
the man.
It's him.
The most holy presence.
The most holy presence indeed.
So, boys, what's up? How you doing?
It's early morning.
It is early today. It's the first time we've done a podcast this early.
Isn't it second time? I think you and me did one quite early. Oh, no, it wasn't this early, actually, I guess.
No, that was like midday something, I think.
All right.
This is early. We're working here.
I digress.
Okay. Well, today we're going to talk about the new Xbox Series X lineup of game trailers or new games. So, Steph, why don't you just lead us in onto that?
Well, Xbox released a slew of trailers that were supposed to show gameplay for their new console, and well, it got quite a bit of backlash actually because it didn't show much actual gameplay at all. It was more like a lot of in-engine rendered footage,
Mm-hmm.
and I would still say there were a lot of different. It was very varied. The genres represented here, and I would say that like the graphics even aren't that much of a step up from the current generation.
No.
With some notable differences. Like it seems the frame rate is better, and they have traces of like RTX ray tracing, these kind of things. So
Yeah,
it looks pretty, but maybe not as much of a step up from, let's say, PS4 and Xbox One as it was from PS4 to PS3, etc.
Yeah. I guess that the kind of transition is it's harder to notice for every generation because like now the kind of fidelity is so good that the human eye is getting accustomed to a very high amount of detail, and you can't really separate the two, even though the detail is probably higher. You can't really notice it like you did before from fucking like polygons in Nintendo 64. That was like very noticeable when we got an upgrade. But I think the things that you mentioned, ray tracing, high frame rate, things like that is a high taxing task for the GPU. So a lot of the kind of improvements are they're incorporated in a way that is not that noticeable. At least when you can kind of feel that the game is smoother, but the fidelity isn't that much of a leap. I guess that kind of takes away the huge upgrade kind of feel from it.
So what about there were a lot of titles shown. So have you guys noticed anyone that stood out to you particularly?
I would say Scorn.
Yeah, I agree.
It's I haven't watched any gameplay, but it's the trailer is very intriguing.
Yeah, and it's a Souls-like as well, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Yeah, I guess the general consensus about it is that it's a Souls-like made in the world of H.R. Geiger, the guy who designed the Xenomorph in Aliens. So it's really fucked up, grotesque, meaty, disgusting, kind of slightly sexual It's very weird. I mean, if you see the
It's
trailer, you see what I mean. Everything has like proboscises that drips things. That it's just really weird.
ooh.
Yeah.
That's like right up your alley, Steph, isn't it? Especially the sexual, gory part.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. No,
No,
but Scorn, it looks really cool. It was announced, or at least, yeah, announced way back in 2017.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, it looks really cool. But then we come back to the discussion here. The lack of gameplay. You really can't judge the game if you can't see gameplay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, is this taking kind of because I feel that this was the Series X was criticized for having a lackluster lineup, and they're trying to kind of come with a rebuttal here, and I feel that it's falling a little bit flat because they have so little gameplay shown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be fair, this is only third party games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
But I
saving
mean,
their like
they're
in-house
big.
productions until
Yeah,
later in the
yeah.
summer, I think.
But the thing is, okay, so yeah, stuff like Halo and Microsoft's branded stuff is good, but it's not like Nintendo,
No.
in-house first party lineup. And Nintendo had problems selling the Wii U
Yeah.
because of the last
That's true.
but yeah.
I still think Halo Infinite is gonna sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that it's a different case to the Wii U because this is much more of a mainstream console type,
Mhm.
and it's released. The Wii U was released in kind of a in between fashion almost,
Yeah,
with the Switch and the Wii.
that's true. It
So
was kind of a weird schedule for that, I feel.
it was. So I
And
think that the marketing was a little bit off on the Wii U, and that's also why it fell so flat in the
yeah,
sales department.
but
But
in truth, I guess it was actually quite a solid console.
yeah, it was. It really was, and it had like a lot of good titles also that were
Mhm.
like lost to obscurity. Or, I mean, Danken, you're the only one who actually owns a Wii U here, so maybe you should pitch in.
Yeah, it was super good. You had like both the okay, this is kind of, if you can call it like main games, but it's the HD remakes of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess,
Ah,
Hmm.
yes.
which is, I mean, you need to have a GameCube or a Wii in case of the Twilight Princess to play these games, so they are
Mm.
both really good. You had like the 3D Super Mario Brothers. I don't quite remember the name, and Smash for Wii U, obviously. Uh,
Hmm.
Ah, yeah.
Mario Kart 8, which has become a huge hit on Switch.
Yeah, Mario
Right.
Kart 8. That's a system pusher for sure. And I mean, yeah, they did the remakes, and the thing is, Wind Waker remake. Wind Waker is such a fucking awesome game. So that's
Yeah.
like a safe kind of win. And Twilight Princess, of course, also. But what do you think about Twilight Princess, Dankan? And you're like a
Uh,
Zelda aficionado, right?
I really love it. I think last time I played it was 5 or 6 years ago,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and it still holds up. I'd say I didn't play the HD remake.
What? Because there was like what do you call that? A mirror image of the GameCube layout on the Wii.
Yeah,
How was the remake? Was it GameCube or was it Wii?
I'm not sure. I
Uh,
I th- I think it was GameCube, because
yeah,
the reason they had to mirror it was because Link is left-handed,
yeah, of
and
course, of
you
course.
hold the Wiimote in the right hand. So
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Zelda. In the introduction podcast, we talked about Ocarina of Time, and I played every Zelda game to date. But the ones that I don't like as much are the motion control ones.
Mm,
And I played Twilight Princess on GameCube for that reason.
same here.
Yeah, I did as well.
Absolutely loved it. But yeah, you did as well. Yeah. So I think that that's the way to experience it. But I've played Skyward Sword, and I actually couldn't finish it because it bothered me so much, the motion controls.
But then
I
again,
enjoyed it. No, I
Yeah,
enjoyed Skyward Sword. I think it's a good game. It's not.
yeah, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate the game. It's just there's something about when you can't, enjoy a good experience that you can, kind of feel in front of you, because you're so annoyed by a control mechanic of the game.
yeah.
I get you.
But then Wii U also had Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean that's already a system seller. I mean it's the reason why I'm still considering buying a Switch, and it was the reason why I was considering buying a Wii U back then as well, because I still haven't played
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh,
Me too. I've played it though a little bit, but I've never owned it because I don't have a Switch.
Right.
oh, you poor
So
soul.
yeah, but I mean, I considered buying a Switch just for that.
Hmm.
And but I think that the Switch will be, or is a success already
Oh yeah,
in
it
terms
is.
of
Mm-hmm.
the games and the potential, with the second Breath of the Wild iteration, or the new Zelda.
Yeah.
And
So
well, if we segue back to the Xbox lineup, um,
yeah,
there's this one game that really stood out to me here that I want to talk about a little bit. Actually, there's two, but the first one is Call of the Sea,
yeah,
because that game to me looks hella interesting.
Mm.
Even though it's kind of like almost like walking simulators. It says there's a narrative-led mystery game, so I guess that's another word for walking simulator. But there was just something about the aesthetics of that game and the fact that, I mean, it looks very heavily inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, which I mean, I hate H.P. Lovecraft,
yeah. We
but
know.
I don't know. There's just something about that aesthetic as well. It looks really really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does look really stylish and cool. I think that the aesthetic is perfect for that kind of setting.
Yeah, so I'm really curious to see where that goes. And then another one is like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Have you guys played the first one? It's kind of like a niche, how do you say, like a cult classic.
Hmm.
Uh,
Never played
no.
it.
Oh, that's a recommendation in and of itself because the first game released in 2004, and I mean I think it got quite some attention at the time, and it got good reviews and everything, but it kind of slipped under the radar for many. But it was really ahead of its time because
Mm.
it was kind of like it's both a third person or a first person action RPG.
Hmm.
But you were in which like there's a city where there's several clans of vampires that all have very very different play styles and like culture and lore as well. And you could choose between, like, you create your own character, you choose between any of these, and you kind of seamlessly blend into the narrative. And this was really interesting because some of the vampires, they might have, like, let's say weaker strength and speed compared to some of the others, but they are really good at blending in with society of humans and are very manipulative and kind of like they are better at charming and hypnotizing, these kind of things. But then
Hmm.
you also have, like, on the complete other side of the spectrum, you have this like super feral, beastly looking vampire kind, which looks like the. Have you guys seen how the original, the Nosferatu vampire from the 20s movie looked like?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he looks kind of like that. And
yeah,
if you play that guy, you cannot walk in the streets. Like, you have to essentially use the sewers to navigate the city because normal people will flee when they see you.
yeah.
So it's very different. And like I remember that the story takes you through a lot of. There's even like there's a small horror section where you investigate a haunted house. Otherwise, you suddenly you're doing this whole action raid razzia thing on like a drug hideout, and it's very different. Like it's very varied. You never know what the game is going to throw out at you, and the dialogue is really good. So it's kind of like one of those games that should have gotten more attention, and now they're going to make the second one, and it looks fucking dope. So I'm really hyped for that
Mm,
one.
nice. It does sound really interesting.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean it was really ahead of its time back then. So imagine what they can do with next gen. And so
Yeah.
I recommend you. I think this one is going to be a hit. It's going to be a blockbuster. I'm pretty sure because now they've actually they're doing more marketing, and it's one of the the launch titles. So I think this time it's gonna make the series more known. So I'm really looking forward to
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, it does look really cool. I think I remember when you're explaining about the different kind of families. I think I
Mhm.
remember I've seen something about that on YouTube
Yeah,
like a long time ago. Um, I can't really say that I remember, the game.
I would say that it's worth buying now because it holds up really well. The first game, so and
Mhm.
you find it for dirt cheap. So if you're at a lack of something to play,
Well, I'm not at a lack of something to play
yeah,
because
well, yeah,
I
but
have
you know
like
what
a 10 lifetime back catalog of games to play.
I mean.
But yeah, sure. I'll put it on my list. Well, yeah, I think like the lineup actually does look good in and of itself. I
Mhm.
don't have, I don't really. I understand where the kind of debacle comes from, but it's like this with the internet always. Drama. You need to kind of create stir up some something to be mad about.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I think also Xbox kind of also went out and said that yeah, they kind of messed up the
they did,
the reveal,
but
and that's true.
they yeah, and that's funny, don't you think? Because like if this was 5 years ago, I don't think they would have apologized like they did. But now they've learned that the gamer rage is not to be trifled with.
Mm.
Yeah, because it really hurts their sales.
It does. So you need to kind of they didn't like bow their heads or anything. They were just like, yeah, we made a mistake with this, and we'll be sure to correct it.
I think
So
that's a smart approach.
yeah, at least in this kind of business. So yeah. What about the Yakuza game? Did you
Well,
play the previous Yakuza's stuff?
I did. I played the hell out of Yakuza Zero, which is a
Hmm.
one of that's like one of my top recommendations if you have a PS4 or no, actually it's on PC as well now. So you can find it for real cheap, and that's a great way to kind of like both experience a really dramatic and thrilling story, but also it gives you a really nice impression of what it's like to live in Japan
Mm.
because it's very
Mm.
authentic. I mean, Yakuza Zero is set in the 80s, so it's not that up to date. But if you play like Yakuza 6, then I mean, they nail so much of that feeling of being in Japan, such as the convenience stores, like the sounds and the songs playing in there, what they say, like everything. They really create that atmosphere. So you'll recognize. I think that's one of the more authentic representations of Tokyo. Apart from the fact that thugs will try and assault you every 5 meters. Of course, that doesn't happen.
Oh,
uh,
it's not like that.
no, it's not. I mean, like in that game, it's more like you watch and it's like chotto sakana, and then suddenly they just attack you out of nowhere, and there's this dramatic cutscene of Kiryu, the protagonist, like dodging a punch and just like getting ready to fight. That only happens every 10 meters in real life, not 5. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty inaccurate. But yeah, the new Yakuza game is Yakuza 7, and it's switched from being an I don't know like actiony RPG, like brawler RPG, to more of a turn-based game,
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
and with a new protagonist as well. So I guess this can be a new entry point for new fans as well.
Hmm.
It seems like. I mean, I think it's already out in Japan, but I haven't tried it. It looks fun though. I heard that turn-based combat actually still nails the feeling of the Yakuza games good. So I'm definitely gonna check this one out.
Yeah. And what about Second Extinction? That's like killing hordes of dinosaurs, and I think it reminded me. You know what it reminded me of? The old Turok series. Do you guys remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
I fucking loved that on N64.
Yeah.
Turok 2: Seeds of Evil. Oh my god, that game.
I never played that actually. I
Good
just watched
game.
my friend play it.
You never played it?
No, not myself.
Oh, that has some atmosphere. That game.
I
That was like back in the old days when it was. I think it was rated like what was it? What was the rating? Like 16 years in Norway
Probably,
to purchase it or to play it or whatever.
probably higher now. Probably 18.
Yeah, maybe the default setting was like no blood, but you could turn that on. I remember, and gore, of course, and but I remember I borrowed it from a friend of mine because I wasn't allowed to play so violent, unlike you, Steph, who had like Doom at age 6.
But that was unbeknownst of my parents. So like,
Yeah,
they,
of
they
course.
had they didn't know anything. So my parents were actually quite strict on age ratings. I was just lucky
Yeah,
enough that I had Doom and Wolfenstein on my retro CD.
yeah, but I mean, Turok, you played it, dank, right?
yeah, I played it a lot over at my friend's house. I don't have like very in-depth memories of the game because it's starting to be quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember it
No.
was the kind of the more scary game he had, at least for us as kids.
Mm.
Yeah. It was like a jump scare, and I think the kind of vibe, the feel that you got from it was really cool, especially from Turok 2, and the variety of weapons, and it was so fucking cool. You could have, can't remember how many, but a lot of different weapons, and there were insanely overpowered ones.
I mean,
This, yeah.
you have the cerebral boar, right?
Yeah, I was about to mention that. I mean, everybody remembers that from Turok 2, of
Yeah.
course. The cerebral boar. The smarter that you had kind of normal dinosaurs,
Mm.
and then you had like humanoid dinosaur hybrids,
Yeah.
and the hybrid enemies, when they recognized the cerebral boar, they started running. They were afraid of it. They knew what it was, and I love that little touch, on the N64 back then. They recognized the weapon and they were like, "Oh my god, no!" And he fired it off. They made this kind of dental boar-like, horrible sound,
Yeah.
following, tracking, and then attaching itself to the head of the enemy you fired at, and just fucking draining the head of cerebral matter, and finishing off with an explosion, of course. So yeah, it was a torture weapon, and kids love torture weapons.
I sure did.
Yeah. But I also remember that you had like the nuke, which was like you've kind of fired this, it charged up for like 1 minute, and then you fired this one kind of beam, which gathered up into a ball and then exploded, kind of killing everyone in the vicinity.
Was that in the second one?
Yeah, that was in the second one. But I think that in the first one you had like a similar weapon, which was like a staff or something.
Mhm.
And it also did that, just charged up for like half a minute, and then you could kind of kill everyone in the vicinity.
So, what is the actual lore in the Turok game?
So the Turok games, they were based on a cartoon, I think.
Uh-huh.
It was then adapted. It was like a story of an Indian named Turok, who
Native American.
traveled, a Native American, sorry. Uh, Back then, it was called an Indian. So he and his friend traveled to this valley where there was some kind of weird time lapse going on, and there were dinosaurs in there.
Ah,
And yeah, they were kind of stuck in this kind of parallel time dimension,
Hmm.
kind of trying to survive in this dinosaur valley. That's the plot. And then this was loosely adapted, I should say, to a video game.
Mm.
Mm. I played Turok Evolution that came like on the following generation on PS2 and GameCube and everything.
Yeah.
And I loved that game though because I played it when I was relatively young. I didn't have that much. I mean, it didn't get that much like praise from critics. But I was unaware of this. So I just played it, and there's still quite a few of the crazy weapons in that one too, like the cerebral bore, which was like an
Yeah.
alternate fire to the bazooka.
Okay.
So you had the rocket launcher on one hand, and then instead of like there was this chamber that actually you could see pushed in the new rocket whenever you fired it.
Hmm.
It was open like on top, but when you switch to the cerebral bore, you just hear this like sound, and then instead of the rocket, it's just like a bunch of like metal balls that just like float in a sphere or like a helix kind of motion inside there instead, and then it would just yeah, like you said, it would just fire off and home at the closest enemy, and they would just stand there, and you could kind of see the metal spheres kind of like wreaking havoc on their insides, and they're
Oh
just
my god.
standing there like spasming, and then their head would explode. Good times.
Yeah, I mean, they don't make games like that anymore. Not in that vein,
Yeah,
with like a ridiculous amount of weapon, or they do with the like Doom remakes, I guess. But
yeah. Uh, but isn't that kind of like comparable to how they don't make movies like the '80s anymore?
yeah, I
Because
guess because you
things are more
can't.
higher production, more there's like different expectations. But then you also have the occasional movie that pays homage to the '80s, which I guess is kind
Mhm,
of similar
mhm.
to what the Doom games is doing.
Yeah, I think so too. It's like we're in a different age. The philosophy of game design is just it's evolved past that
Mm.
simpler format. So I guess that we'll have to make do with homages. Any Yeah, did
But,
you find any other interesting titles on here?
no, I mean, did we did we touch anything upon Second Extinction?
No, we almost didn't talk about it. We talked about Torok. Yeah, so second extinction. It's like dinosaurs, and you kill a bunch of dinosaurs. It's a wave shooter, I guess, like a first person wave shooter ish.
Like Left 4 Dead.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I I don't know when I heard about it, like the concept of a Left 4 Dead kind of game with dinosaurs, I was pretty hyped because I love dinosaurs. But then I don't know about you guys, but the trailers were kind of once I saw it in action, it didn't really grip me as much.
No, I mean you've played a billion games that look like that,
Yeah,
Mm.
so the formula isn't really innovative, I guess, but then we'll just have to see how it shapes up.
yeah, of
It
course.
can't surprise you.
It'll probably
Yeah.
grow stale. I think if you're just gonna stand and shoot dinosaurs.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the problem with those kind of games.
Yeah.
and don't you guys also kind of feel like dinosaurs deserve more of survival horror kind of game like Dino
Yeah.
Crisis, where you actually don't have the firepower to just blow them away and make them non-threats?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
If there were,
survival horror. I think that's kind of perfect. I think if you kind of mesh an open world game a little bit with survival elements, akin to kind of making a bow, making a spear, trying to
yeah,
survive in a dinosaur infested island or something, and then you kind of stalk through the woods at night,
hmm,
and you're constantly shit scared that a fucking T-Rex is gonna just pick you up and jump you.
yeah, because there's so much potential for building tension in those games. Because like even
Hmm.
the I don't know about you guys, but for me as a kid, when I watched the first Jurassic Park for the first time, just the fucking stomping of the
Hmm.
Mm.
Tyrannosaur, like coming closer and closer, to me that was hella scary, and it built so much tension. And the main
Yeah.
characters never had a chance against it either, and all you could do was just kind of like hide and hope it didn't see you. But if it
Yeah.
saw you, you were so fucked, and you just have to bolt and run for it and hope for the best. And it was just like, to me, that was scarier than ghosts back then. Just
Hmm.
it was still awesome, but just the thought of being stuck in that situation just fucking killed me.
Yeah. Have you played the game The Forest,
No, I haven't tried that actually.
Danken?
I
Did you play
watched
it?
a full playthrough.
Okay, so you watched a full playthrough. So the thing, I think that like a setting like that, with of course a little bit more of a AAA presentation, but on a kind of like a dinosaur island where you try to survive, you try to build up some weapons and kind of like a small base or something like that, and you're constantly scared of dinosaurs just coming and fucking killing you because you're a weak little human.
Yeah,
That would
Yeah.
be like a great premise for a game.
I mean, or they could just have Norman Reedus delivering packages, but there's dinosaurs.
yeah. I mean, why not? Dino Stranding.
Yeah, he's just stranded on Jurassic Park Island.
I would play it. I mean, I wouldn't mind at all. I think that's actually a
No.
cool
No,
concept.
yeah, that sounds like a good premise for a game.
Just imagine. Do you guys remember in Jurassic Park 2 when they're kind of like running through the tall grass,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you kind of just see they just film it from above. You see the raptors coming in from the sides, approaching the humans that are running, and you kind of just
Yeah.
see the grass kind of like being
Mm.
trampled, and it looks like
Yeah.
these snakes approaching them.
Hmm.
Like just imagining trying to stalk through that kind of thing in like a really jump scare heavy game.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I mean, giving you the experience of being the hunted rather than the hunter itself, I think could do a
Hmm.
lot for those games. And just having the great sound design and making you borderline helpless.
Yeah, yeah. I just love that premise in games where you try to survive and you're very weak, and you have to kind of play it out perfectly just to survive.
Mm,
And then you kind of incrementally in small increments get a little bit stronger, a little bit more safe, but never really safe,
yeah,
if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I
a
just
lot
love
of
that kind of
potential
game.
there.
So yeah, we're not too impressed with with the Series X iterate or the second extinction premise, I guess.
Yeah, it
It's
always
a no
feels
for
like
me.
whenever a new dinosaur game is announced, I'm always like, oh, is this gonna be the game that brings
Hmm.
dinosaurs back into
Kind of the
the
mainstream focus, yeah.
yeah? And then I watch the trailers, I'm like, oh, maybe next time.
Hmm. Okay, so are we gonna jump on to the next topic?
Yeah,
Are we? Yeah, I think we're done with the lineup. Um, I've been playing. I've recently bought the Heroes 3 of the HD remake on Steam.
but
Might and
hey,
Magic. Yeah.
remember to this isn't this gonna be nostalgia corner?
Nostalgia Corner. Welcome to Nostalgia Corner, everybody.
Yay.
Today
Hey,
we're going to talk about a very beloved game, beloved by all. It is the mighty Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Oh yeah, yeah,
what
and
a
just the
game!
name evokes golden memories of back in the day.
I can
Yeah.
still feel
So, what kind of class? What kind of game is this? Would you say, Duncan?
Uh, in its base, it's strategy. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it is turn-based. It's kind of I would say an army management, or more like over time building up an army, and at the
Yeah,
same time exploring the map and like just getting stronger.
it
yeah,
is. Yeah, I think it's very hard to kind of coin a definition
Mm,
of this game because it's like the formula is almost unique for this game.
yeah,
yeah.
They do it very particularly. It's like you said, it's strategy with kind of army and resource management, but it's also a lot of RPG elements. You know, you got spells, you level up your heroes, and they become stronger and stronger. And there's also like an overarching narrative to the maps.
Yeah.
Kind of have like objectives like capture this castle, or just defeat all enemies, capture the Grail, find the Grail, the Holy Grail, and stuff like that. So, or just defeat this very strong monster on the map. But it's a very unique formula, I guess. I don't really recall playing game or any other games except clones of Heroes, of course, that resemble it. But it just does. And the Heroes 3, the kind of the definitive iteration, I guess, is just packed to the brim with, you know, this formula. It's done perfectly in every aspect. And it's so replayable even to this day. I just like I said, I downloaded it 3 days ago and I have 13 hours already. So yeah, it's addictive.
It's one of those games where I feel you kind of, no matter, whenever you buy a new computer, you kind of always at some point you have Heroes 3 on that computer.
Yeah, it'll always be like, it's like, no matter how fucking powerful your computer is, you can always go back to fucking Heroes 3. It'll run on a potato.
Yeah, and mobile game developers, support it to the mobile phones, please.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's actually perfect for that. I mean, you never almost need to write anything into it. It's like very clicky. It's a very clicky game.
Yeah. But there's one thing about this game that I feel make it what it is, gameplay wise, because yes, it's a turn-based strategy and everything, but one of the things that make it so unique, gameplay wise, is how broken it is. Balance.
Yeah, of course. And it had like a huge amount of expansions, didn't it? I think the HD edition, is that a definitive edition?
No, I think it's lacking.
No?
You got the one on Steam?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that one's without expansions. It's just the base game.
Yeah. It's just the base game, so it's no conflicts or anything.
Yeah, it doesn't have the Armageddon thing and
Pack.
it doesn't have those two, the two main expansions, as far as I know.
No. But there are a lot of mods also for this game. The craziest mods.
What about the music?
The music. I mean, the thing about this game, I feel that every aspect of it is almost perfection. You know, the music is just, it's so nostalgic. It's so, you know, very evocative. Gets your emotions, you know, flaring. All of the different theme musics from the towns are so they're so perfect for the aesthetic of the town, and you know, the overall map music, the jingles that play when you pick up something or capture a mine, or you know,
Yeah,
all of that good jazz. It's perfection in like every small little detail.
and it's so fucking memorable because I can hear it in my head super clear, like as you're going along and telling about the things. I can already hear
Yeah,
like,
right.
when you pick up the
Yeah.
coins and like
Yeah.
and the
Yeah, I
level
know.
up sounds and all these things. Just especially also the sound of when the golems attack. That
Yeah.
sound when they punch.
Yeah, I know what sound you're talking about. So yeah, and I think also that, of course, the Heroes is a very time-consuming game.
Fuck yeah.
So you've heard these sounds billions of times, you know. So that also contributes to the factor that you remember it so clearly. But I can remember, I have a clear memory of this game. I went to my buddy's house and we played what's called Hot Seat. Which is like, since the game is turn-based, you can like play and switch seats, and you can have I mean, 8 players at the same time if you want to. It takes like a year to play a game, but sure, you can do it. And we had this system where you just one guy went into the room to play, and the others had to sit outside the door and wait for their turn. So everything was kind of like hidden except what you saw from your perspective when you played. And if you encountered or fought one of the other guys, you had to come out and get him, bring him in so you could fight. And it was so good. I mean, we fucking love that. We fucking love that. Just the suspense, and we always had this, backstabbing alliances and stuff like that. Kind of whispering outside the door, okay, send me, 5,000 gold and I'll crush him for you. Stuff like that. Oh my god, it was so fucking amazing.
And
yeah.
well, I was just can we talk about the magic in that game for a second?
Oh yeah,
how fucking broken that shit is.
It's so broken. And I mean, back when we were kids, you really didn't know how to exploit it, that well.
Yeah.
But now, playing it now, it's so fucking broken. Blind. I mean, are you serious? You can just blind the most powerful creature and skip its turn. Oh my god, that's fucking broken. And also things like special effects from creatures, like for instance, the unicorn in the Ramparts town. It does have like a blind on hit effect, a chance to blind at least, and that's also so. And you can abuse those creature effects so much. Oh my god. And all the creatures that don't have a retaliate or can avoid retaliation from other creatures, it's so broken if you know how to utilize it.
And then you have stuff like because I mean, just to preface this a little bit, like in the town, like each turn, you also get to build a building in your city, right? And one of them can be the Mages Guild, and you upgrade it. And as you upgrade it, of course, you can also level up your affinity for a special school of magic for your hero. So let's say another example of hilariously broken is the Berserk spell, because I mean, it does what you think it will. You kind of just put it on one enemy, and then he attacks the nearest troops. However, if you max out to like expert fire magic affinity for your hero, suddenly you can give the entire enemy team rabies. Just it's so balanced. I love it.
It's so broken. And I mean, to be fair, there is like an artifact that makes you immune to the Berserk spell.
Oh yeah.
But the chances of finding that, and I mean that being like you having the perfect counter, is so low.
Yeah.
But also just like you mentioned, if you level up your affinity for magic and get a lot of spell power, and if you get like there's like this artifact that doubles or increases the damage with 50% of that school of magic, you can pretty much kill anything when like if you have like chain lightning and a lot of spell power in that, you can like murder the entire enemy team in like one spell.
Yeah, and then you also have those other stupid spells like Dimension Door, where
like Dimension Door, when you like teleport your hero around, like use it 50 times on one turn and like traverse the map.
Exactly, because the stupid thing about that is like normally you have a set amount of like distance that a hero can travel each turn, but with Dimension Door, if you have a lot of mana, you can essentially just traverse the entire map in one go. So you can just like teleport, or you can just teleport yourself over to the enemy base on the different continent, just attack them, and then just like teleport back. Or you can just like snipe their hideouts when they're out of town or something like that. So you become like the Heroes 3 equivalent of an intercontinental ballistic missile.
Yeah, it is like that. You can, especially if their town is not defended, you can just snatch it, and you
Yeah.
can kind of hunker down in it, because you have the defender's advantage in the town. And okay, then now he has to retake it somehow, and if he doesn't retake it, he loses a lot of creature growth and income and stuff like that. So it's a really broken spell. To be fair, it's to do that, you need to have a lot of spell power, and you need or knowledge rather, to increase your mana pool, and you need to have the spell, which is also quite rare. But yeah, you can do that, and you can also fly, is also kind of broken, where you can traverse terrain without any or you can ride over mountains, basically,
Yeah.
to kind of shortcut your way to the enemy town really, really fast.
I mean, it doesn't sound broken at all.
No, but
Not
there's
at all.
no. The thing is that you can get an artifact also, which gives your hero permanent fly, so
Yeah,
he can
right.
just traverse anywhere. That's also quite broken. But I think I love that aspect about it also, that it is quite unbalanced. And in the early game also, you can abuse magic to level up really quickly. Some heroes have a really good spell right off the bat, and they have enough mana to use it once. But you can kind of kill really tough packs of enemies
Yeah.
with that one spell. And I can remember a tower hero, Solmir. I remember that one. He had the chain lightning spell.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was so broken. Especially if you just picked him and just went straight to one of the other guys' town, and he had just gotten 4 creatures. You cast that once, and then 3 of them died. They only had the one. And then yeah, okay. And then if you crushed him, he had to kind of just be an observer for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the downside to the whole hot seat tournament.
Well, we can also get into the topic of when it comes to broken strategies. If you chose a diplomacy hero,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that was also broken. So diplomacy worked when you encounter a neutral creature, you had a chance that they would join you. They would offer to join you instead of fighting you. And especially if you had a high level of diplomacy, you could get really, really powerful stacks of creatures.
yeah,
And creatures are more powerful when they're under the command of your hero, so that would also kind of get amped a little bit by that. It's a little bit skewed, since to kind of balance the difficulty, they had to have a lot of creatures when you fought them in a neutral state, because they're not buffed by attack power or defense. But when you acquire them, they become gain double the power. So yeah, diplomacy was really, really broken.
yeah, and considering you can be this really shitty level hero, and you just walk up to let's say a pack of dragons, one of the best units in the game, and there was a chance, if you had it maxed out, there was a chance that even if you were really low level, the dragons would be like, "Oh, I like what you're saying to me. I can join you instead. Let's rape the
Yeah,
other players early game."
it's oh yeah, you have a stack of 10 imps. Yeah, I'll join you. That seems like the best course of action here.
Yeah, and it always says a pack of six. No, what is it again? The black dragons have a wish for greater glory and wish to join you.
Yeah, they're they found out that fighting you was not the best option here. Oh yeah, so fucking love that. I fucking love the game, and there's just so much potential for replayability, since all the towns are different. They have their gimmick. The Necropolis has the necromancy, which is unique to them, and they can raise skeletons from dead army.
Well,
And
on
yeah.
I'm not sure if this has happened to you, but if you go to these towers, which gives you a random ability,
Hmm.
and you get fucking necromancy as one of the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
gets.
it's useless. I know, and all the artifacts also, which boost your necromancy skill.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's one town uh, with the necromancy skill, and there's like what 5 artifacts with the necromancy
Yeah.
boost. It's so fucking useless, but that's part of the charm of the game.
Yeah.
But if you
And you
have it
can always sell those.
but if you have it as a necromancy hero for the necropolis,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and if you also find the cloak of the balanced king, the artifact that you assemble, which turns all the, because normally you resurrect fallen enemies and allies as skeletons, but
Mm.
if you have the cloak of the balanced king, you turn these skeletons into fucking tier 7 liches instead,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
which are like high tier shooters. And once you have like 1,000 of them,
trillion. Yeah.
like each battle you get another 1,000, it becomes
Oh
very, I mean, it goes to the point where if it's a very long game, let's say one of those the largest maps, and if you like the YouTuber Seth Seamtalk, he kind of had a foolproof method of finding out whether or not your enemy had assembled the cloak of the balanced king, because once you see the enemy hero, you can right click them and you can see a preview of their enemy or of their armies, right?
hmm
And if you just see like a full line of stacks of liches and the numbers are just glitching,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's when you know it's about time to quit. There's no point in it.
Yeah. And I mean, the Heroes is a really difficult game. Also, if you play it on anything else than higher than normal difficulty, you'll have a grand old time trying to win, especially the larger maps.
Yeah.
And the computer doesn't fuck around either.
No.
You know, it doesn't fuck around on the harder difficulties. It'll fucking And the thing is, if you lose a battle, you can retreat and kind of get your hero back with all the levels minus the army. But the opposing hero will gain a lot of experience from you losing.
Mm.
So it's like, yeah, you lost and you can live to fight another day, but that hero is kind of growing at like a fucking orc war boss, just getting more and more menacing.
Not to mention the economic damage is also like
Oh yeah.
almost irreparable at times,
Yeah.
especially in the later games.
And like creature growth also.
Yeah.
So every week, every 7 turns, you get creature growth in your town, and this kind of stacks up over time. So your creatures, stack up and they're more and more powerful, more and more durable. The stacks, but if you kind of have to retreat like that, you start on the bottom again, and you have to wait for the coming week for creature growth.
Mm.
And then one kind of week's worth of creature growth is like nothing.
Yeah.
You had like 100 archdevils in your stack, and now we have 2.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and also when you play at least the campaign maps, I know the like creatures that spawn on the map, they also
yeah,
grow. So you can't
they
just
grow.
grind
Yeah,
and then like steamroll everything. If you
no,
like play for 2
they
hours, you meet like 500 dragons.
yeah, like zounds of dragons.
Yeah, throngs and hordes.
Throng, yeah.
Yeah.
Legions.
Yeah.
Legions, yeah, legions. That's like when it's past 1,000, I guess.
But
Yeah,
imagine if you have diplomacy in those circumstances.
yeah, and that's what makes it so broken. You can kind of like recruit 1,000 dragons just like that.
And not, yeah, and you can also, like, if you're lucky with the maps, the spawns and everything, you can actually just end up with an entire army made up of the highest tier units.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, that's like the end goal, to just have the high tier units and some broken second tier units maybe,
Yeah.
I mean,
because there are some really good second tier. Yeah.
I mean, you lose synergy, right? But I mean, if you have just high tiered units, it doesn't really matter, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
No. And often you have such high morale. So
Yeah.
we didn't explain that. There's a morale system also in the game. If you have too many different creatures in your army, and if, especially creatures that are kind of opposing factions, like angels and demons, uh, they lose. You get a morale kind of penalty for that, and it works like when you're in battle. There's a small chance of your creature losing its turn
Yeah.
because of morale. But when you have like a really high stack of artifacts with high morale, or just leadership, which is a talent or an ability from the hero, you can circumvent that easily.
Mm.
So you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. And let's also talk about another very balanced strategy, which is if you use the Inferno town, which otherwise, apparently, if you compare to the meta, the Inferno town is the shittiest town. But
Mm.
if you get Armageddon and you just have a hero and you fill it up with this unit called Ifrit,
Hmm.
which is immune to fire magic, and then you only have an Ifrit or two in your army, and you have Armageddon, you have maxed out fire magic, you just run over to a hero and you suicide bomb them, because
Mm.
essentially the Armageddon spell, it does a shit ton of damage and it rains fire on the entire map, but then it also does friendly fire,
Mm.
except if you're immune to fire magic.
Yeah. And I mean that's kind of the epitome of what heroes is. You can create, you can kind of use different tactics. It's so creative, it's so replayable,
Yeah,
1,000 different methods to kind of cheese, if you will. But still, it's really really fun, to have all these options for playing the game.
yeah, and it's part of why the game is still being played today.
Hmm.
And it's why it's one of the most. I think it came out like what, 98 or something. It's quite old, but it,
Quite old.
it's still the go-to game in the franchise, even though they're up to like Hero 7.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I played some of the newer ones,
yeah,
but they just can't really. I think Heroes 5 I really liked. It's
yeah,
Mhm.
modeled, it's trying to be like Heroes 3, I guess.
yeah,
It's very kind of a throwback kind of game. And it's good. It's definitely good, but it's not, really up to the standards of Heroes 3.
yeah, exactly. I agree. And Dan Gian, I think I still have your copy of Tribes of the East for
You
Hero
do?
5,
Huh.
which I borrowed from you like what, 15 years ago.
Yeah, that was a cool game.
Yeah, it was.
The like half a year that you owned it.
Yeah.
Uh,
uh, Well, to summarize this episode of Nostalgia Corner, so Heroes 3 is one of my all-time favorite games, easily like top 7,
Oh yeah,
mm,
and I still play it to this day.
and it's available for dirt cheap, so
Hmm.
you really don't have any excuse at all.
If you like this kind of game and you haven't played it, just go play it, okay?
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess we'll round out today's podcast with those words.
Mm,
As always, guys, stay humid and
Hey, Dank.
stay very dank.
oh yeah.